If you've ever loved someone so deeply that losing them changed the way you breathe, then this story is for you. And before it begins, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and stay till the end. Because what starts as a child's innocent question will change an entire family forever. The amusement park was loud with laughter, music, and spinning colors, but Daniel felt none of it. He stood in line near the fairytale castle, holding 3 small hands, each one warm, each one trusting him with their entire world. His triplet daughters were dressed in matching pastel dresses, hair tied with tiny ribbons, eyes sparkling like they truly believed magic was real. "Daddy! Look!" Lily shouted. "The princess!" Emma added. "She's beautiful," Sophie whispered. A woman dressed as a princess stood on the castle balcony, smiling for the crowd. Her gown shimmered. Her posture was perfect. But then Lily tilted her head. "Daddy, why does the princess look sad?" Daniel froze. He hadn't expected that question. "Not here. Not now." Emma squinted. "She's smiling but her eyes aren't." Sophie tugged his sleeve gently. "Did someone hurt her?" Daniel swallowed hard. For years, he had perfected the art of hiding pain. For years, he had smiled when he wanted to scream. And suddenly, 3 little girls had seen right through a stranger. Just like they always saw through him. He crouched down so he was eye level with them. "Sometimes," he said softly, "people smile because they think they have to." "Why?" Lily asked. "Because they're afraid no one will love them if they don't." The girls went quiet. Daniel's mind drifted somewhere he rarely allowed it to go. To a woman who once loved him. To a night that ended everything. To 3 tiny heartbeats that survived when love didn't. 10 years earlier, Daniel wasn't a single father. He was a man in love. Maya had been fire, confident, sensual, alive in a way that pulled people toward her. When she walked into a room, eyes followed. When she laughed, people leaned closer. When she loved intensely. At least, that's what Daniel believed. Their nights were filled with whispered dreams, tangled sheets, slow kisses that promised forever. There was passion, real, aching, dangerous passion. The kind that makes you forget who you were before. Then Maya got pregnant. Triplets. Fear changed everything. She grew distant. Arguments replaced kisses. Silence replaced laughter. And one night, after the girls were born, Maya disappeared. No goodbye. No explanation. Just a note. "I'm not meant for this life." Daniel never hated her. He just stopped believing in fairy tales. Back at the park, the princess waved to the children. Lily waved back enthusiastically. Emma leaned against Daniel's chest. "Daddy, are you sad too?" Daniel closed his eyes for a second. "Yes," he admitted. "Sometimes." Sophie smiled up at him. "It's okay. We love you even when you don't smile." Something broke inside him. And something else healed. Later that evening, as fireworks painted the sky, Daniel noticed a woman standing alone nearby. She wasn't watching the show. She was watching him. Not in a creepy way. In a familiar way. She was elegant, curves soft but confident, eyes deep and observant. Her dress hugged her just enough to make Daniel uncomfortable with how long he looked. Their eyes met. She smiled, not a forced smile. A real one. And for the first time in years, Daniel felt something stir inside him. Hope. That night, as the girls slept in the back seat, Lily whispered, half asleep. "Daddy, maybe the princess just needs someone brave to tell her she's allowed to be happy." Daniel looked at the road ahead. He didn't know it yet, but that simple sentence was about to change everything. The woman was still there when the fireworks ended. Daniel noticed her again as families began to move toward the exits, children yawning, parents calling names into the crowd. She stood a little apart, hands folded loosely in front of her, her posture calm but not closed. The glow of fading lights caught her face just enough to make her eyes look familiar in a way that unsettled him. He told himself not to stare. He failed. She took a step closer, then another, as if testing whether the space between them would resist her. It didn't. When she stopped a few feet away, Daniel felt something old and dangerous wake up in his chest. "Your daughters," she said gently, nodding toward the sleeping girls in the stroller. "They're beautiful." "Thank you," Daniel replied, his voice rougher than he intended. "They were watching the princess like she was real magic," the woman continued. "That kind of belief, it's rare." Daniel gave a small smile. "They see things most adults miss." Her lips curved upward. "Yes. I noticed." There was a pause. Not awkward. Waited. "I'm Clara," she said at last. "Daniel." Their handshake was brief, but the warmth lingered longer than it should have. "I couldn't help overhearing earlier," Clara said softly. "What you told them, about smiling when you're afraid no one will love you." Daniel felt exposed. "I hope that wasn't inappropriate," she added quickly. "No," he said. "It was honest." She studied him for a moment, her gaze steady, intelligent, unafraid of what she might find. Honesty like that usually comes from experience. Daniel exhaled slowly. Too much of it. They walked toward the parking lot together, neither of them suggesting it, both of them choosing it anyway. The girls slept peacefully, their heads leaning toward one another like they shared the same dream. Clara glanced at them now and then, her expression unreadable. "You're a good father," she said. Daniel let out a short laugh. "You know that from 5 minutes?" "I know that from the way you listen to them," she replied. "And the way they lean into you like the world makes sense when you're close." That comment landed deeper than any compliment he'd received in years. "I try," he said quietly. They reached their cars. For a moment, Daniel assumed that was it, that this strange, magnetic encounter would dissolve into memory, another almost. Then Clara spoke. "Would you like coffee sometime?" Just like that. No games. No hesitation. Daniel hesitated enough for both of them. "I have 3 kids," he said, as if that explained everything. She smiled. "I noticed. I don't have a lot of free time. Coffee doesn't take long." "I'm not looking for anything complicated." Her gaze softened. "Neither am I." The honesty in her voice disarmed him. "Okay," he said. Her smile widened, not triumphant, just pleased. They exchanged numbers. When she walked away, Daniel watched her until she disappeared into the stream of people, a strange warmth settling under his ribs. For the first time in years, he drove home feeling something other than exhaustion. Clara sat in her car long after Daniel left. Her hands trembled slightly as she rested them on the steering wheel. She hadn't planned to talk to him. Hadn't planned to notice him. Hadn't planned to feel that sharp, unsettling pull in her chest when he spoke to his daughters with such gentleness it almost hurt to watch. Men like that were dangerous. Not because they lied. Because they were real. And real had once shattered her life. The coffee shop was small and quiet, tucked between a bookstore and a florist. Daniel arrived early, nerves buzzing under his skin like he was 20 again instead of a widowed-by-choice single father of 3. Clara arrived 5 minutes later. She wore jeans and a soft sweater, her hair loose around her shoulders. Less polished than the park. More real. Daniel stood when she approached, instinctively. She noticed. Still a gentleman, she teased lightly. Still nervous, he admitted. They sat. Ordered. Spoke about nothing first, the weather, the shop, the way the city felt too loud lately. Then the conversation shifted, as real conversations do. How long have you been on your own? Clara asked carefully. Daniel didn't correct the assumption. 10 years. Her eyes widened slightly. That's a long time. It becomes normal, he said. Loneliness can be loud at first. Then it just hums in the background. Clara wrapped her hands around her cup. I know that sound. He looked at her. What about you? She hesitated. I was married once. The past flickered in her eyes. It ended badly? She nodded. He loved the idea of me. Not the reality. Daniel understood that more than he wanted to. Something shifted between them then, an unspoken agreement that neither would pretend to be less broken than they were. Over the next weeks, Clara became a presence in Daniel's life. Not intrusive. Not demanding. Just there. She came to the park with them once, sitting on a bench with Sophie while Lily and Emma raced ahead. She listened when Emma talked about wanting to be a scientist and didn't laugh when Lily declared she'd marry a dragon someday. When Sophie fell and scraped her knee, Clara reacted instantly, calm, steady, soothing. Daniel watched from a distance, something twisting inside his chest. You're good with them, he said later. She shrugged. I like who they are. That answer mattered. At night, when the house was quiet and the girls were asleep, Daniel found himself thinking about Clara in ways that unsettled him. The way she leaned in when she laughed. The warmth of her hand when it brushed his arm. The tension that lingered in the air when they stood too close, both pretending not to notice. He hadn't felt desire like this in years, not sharp, not alive. It scared him. One evening, after the girls were in bed, Clara stayed longer than usual. They sat on the couch, a careful distance between them that felt heavier than closeness. Daniel, she said softly, what happened to the girl's mother? The question hung there, fragile. He stared at the wall for a long moment. Then he told her. About Maya. About love turning into silence. About being left with 3 newborns and a note. Clara listened without interrupting, her eyes glistening. She left because she was afraid, Clara said finally. Yes, Daniel replied. And so am I. She reached for his hand then, not urgently, not possessively. Just enough to let him know he wasn't alone in that fear. Their fingers intertwined. Neither of them pulled away. The moment stretched, electric, restrained, aching with everything unsaid. Clara's voice dropped to a whisper. We don't have to rush. Daniel nodded. I don't want to. Their foreheads touched. Breath mingled. The air felt charged, heavy with promise and restraint. They didn't kiss. That restraint made it mean more. Later that night, after Clara left, Daniel stood in the doorway for a long time. For the first time since Maya, he wasn't just surviving. He was choosing. And somewhere, deep inside, the part of him that had stopped believing in fairy tales stirred again. Not because of magic. But because of truth. The next morning, Sophie looked up at him over breakfast. Daddy, she said seriously, you smile more now. Daniel froze. Is it because of Clara? Lily asked. Emma grinned. She's not sad like the princess. Daniel laughed, shaking his head. No, he said softly. She's not. But he didn't know yet that Clara carried secrets of her own. Secrets that would test everything they were building. Clara didn't sleep that night. She lay awake staring at the ceiling, Daniel's living room replaying in her mind like a scene she couldn't pause. The warmth of his hand. The way his voice softened when he talked about his daughters. The restraint, God, the restraint, that made everything feel heavier, more dangerous. She hadn't planned this. She especially hadn't planned to care. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. A name she hadn't seen in years lit up the screen. Her stomach tightened before she even answered. "I told you not to call," she said quietly. "You said a lot of things back then," the voice replied. "We need to talk." "There's nothing left to say." "There is," he insisted. "Especially now." Clara closed her eyes. The past had a way of resurfacing when happiness felt too close. Daniel sensed the shift before Clara admitted anything. She still came around. Still smiled at the girls. Still laughed at Lily's dramatic storytelling and listened patiently to Emma's endless questions. But something had changed. She was more careful. More distant. Like someone holding a door half open, ready to close it if the wind turned. One evening, after dinner, Sophie tugged on Clara's sleeve. "Are you sad?" she asked softly. Clara blinked, startled. "Why do you ask, sweetheart?" "You smile," Sophie said, echoing words from weeks ago, "but your eyes look like the princess." The room went quiet. Daniel watched Clara's face pale just a little. She knelt in front of Sophie and brushed a strand of hair from her forehead. "Sometimes grown-ups carry heavy thoughts," Clara said gently. "But that doesn't mean we don't care." Sophie nodded, satisfied. But Daniel wasn't. Later, when the girls were asleep, he found Clara standing by the window, arms wrapped around herself. "Do you want to tell me what's wrong?" he asked. She didn't turn around. "I don't know how." "Try." Clara laughed softly, without humor. "You make it sound so easy." "It isn't," he said. "But neither is pretending." That landed. She faced him then, really looked at him, as if measuring the cost of honesty. "There are parts of my past I don't like," she said slowly. "Parts that could complicate things." Daniel nodded. "So do I." She searched his face. "What if mine hurts you?" He stepped closer, not touching her. "What if hiding it hurts us more?" Silence stretched between them, thick and fragile. "I was married," she said again, but this time there was more beneath it. Not just unhappily. Dangerously. Daniel's jaw tightened. He was charming, Clara continued. Successful. Everyone loved him. But behind closed doors, he needed control. Over everything. Over me. Daniel's hands curled into fists at his sides. "I left," she said. "But men like that don't like losing." A chill ran through him. "Is he back?" She hesitated. "Yes." The word dropped between them like glass shattering. Desire doesn't disappear when fear enters a room. If anything, it sharpens. The days that followed were charged with unspoken tension. Clara and Daniel moved around each other carefully, aware of the pull but cautious of the danger circling them. One night, after the girls had gone to bed, a storm rolled in. Thunder rattled the windows. The house felt smaller, closer. Clara stood in the kitchen, drying dishes. Daniel leaned against the counter, watching her. "You don't have to go through this alone," he said. She shook her head. "You already have enough." "I decide what's enough." Her breath caught. She turned toward him, the space between them suddenly too thin. "I'm not safe," she whispered. "Not for you. Not for your girls." Daniel reached out, stopping just short of touching her. "I've lived 10 years building walls around my daughters. I won't let anyone tear them down." "And if I'm the storm?" she asked. "Then we face it together." Something in Clara broke. She stepped into him, her hands gripping his shirt like it was the only solid thing in the room. His arms came around her instinctively, holding her, not urgently, but securely, like he was anchoring her to the present. Their faces were inches apart. Breath mingled. The air felt electric, thick with everything they'd been holding back. "Daniel," she whispered, warning and wanting tangled together. "I know," he murmured. Their lips met, not desperate, not rushed. Slow. Exploratory. A kiss that asked permission instead of taking. Clara melted into him, months of restraint unraveling in that single contact. The kiss deepened, still careful, still controlled, but charged with heat that made her knees weak. Daniel pulled back first, forehead resting against hers. "We stop here," he said, voice strained. She nodded, grateful and aching all at once. Because stopping made it real. The next morning, Daniel found a note on the counter. "I need to handle something. I'll explain soon. I promise." Fear coiled in his chest. By afternoon, he got the call. A calm, polite voice. Male. Confident. "This is Clara's husband." "Ex-husband," Daniel corrected silently. "I think you should know who you're letting near your children." The line went dead. That evening, a car Daniel didn't recognize parked across the street. The girls were in the living room, coloring. Lily looked up at the window. "Daddy," she said, uneasy, "someone's watching the house." Daniel's blood ran cold. He moved quickly, locking doors, pulling curtains, his heart pounding with a fury he hadn't felt since the night Maya left. This wasn't about him anymore. This was about protecting his daughters. And Clara. Clara arrived an hour later, breathless, shaken. "I'm so sorry," she said as soon as Daniel opened the door. "I never wanted him near you." "He called me," Daniel replied, voice controlled but lethal. Tears filled her eyes. "I tried to stop him." Daniel looked at her, really looked, and saw not danger, but fear. Not chaos, but a woman who had survived it. He took her hands firmly. "You don't get to decide this alone." The girls peeked from the hallway, sensing the tension. Clara knelt in front of them, tears slipping down her cheeks. "I promise," she said, voice trembling, "would never let anyone hurt you." Sophie stepped forward and hugged her. "We know," she said simply. Something shifted then, not just between Clara and Daniel, but within all of them. The past had come knocking. And this time, Daniel wasn't backing down. That night, as Clara sat on the couch wrapped in a blanket, Daniel made a silent vow. He had lost once. He had been left once. But he would not let fear write this ending. Because sometimes, the most dangerous thing you can do is choose love anyway. The house had never felt so quiet. Daniel sat at the kitchen table long after midnight, the glow of his phone the only light in the room. Clara had fallen asleep on the couch, exhaustion finally winning over fear. The girls were upstairs, doors closed, unaware of how close the world had come to intruding on their safety. Daniel scrolled through old photos on his phone, pictures he rarely looked at. The girls as newborns, impossibly small. Their first steps. Their first day of school. Everything he had built was fragile. And now someone from Clara's past had noticed it. His phone vibrated. A message from an unknown number. "You don't know her like you think you do." Daniel stared at the screen, jaw tightening. He didn't reply. He powered the phone off instead, stood, and walked to the living room. Clara slept curled into herself, like someone who had learned the hard way that the world could turn cruel without warning. He covered her gently with another blanket, resisting the urge to wake her, to pull her into his arms and promise things he wasn't sure he could protect. That fear, that doubt, was new. And it scared him more than the threat outside. By morning, Clara was gone. Not vanished, just gone. A note sat neatly on the counter, her handwriting careful, controlled. "I need to leave for a while. For your girls. For you. Please don't look for me." Daniel read it 3 times before it sank in. The ache that followed was deep and sharp, like a reopened wound he'd forgotten could still bleed. Lily noticed first. "Where's Clara?" she asked over breakfast. Daniel forced a calm smile. "She had to take care of something." Emma frowned. "Is she coming back?" He hesitated just a second too long. Sophie watched him closely, her eyes far too perceptive for someone her age. "She's sad," Sophie said quietly. "And scared." Daniel swallowed. "Yes. Did we do something wrong?" "No," he said immediately, kneeling in front of them. "Never. Sometimes grown-ups leave because they think it will protect the people they love." Lily crossed her arms. "That's silly." Daniel almost laughed. Days passed. Then weeks. Clara didn't call. Daniel threw himself into routine: school drop-offs, homework, dinners, bedtime stories. He functioned, but something was missing. The house felt hollow, like a note held too long after the music stopped. At night, when the girls were asleep, the doubts crept in. Had he pushed her too hard? Had he been selfish, wanting more when she was still running from fear? And beneath it all, the question he hated most: what if she was right to leave? Clara stayed with her sister 2 cities away, living out of a suitcase and pretending she was fine. She wasn't. Every quiet moment brought Daniel back to her, the way his voice softened when he spoke to his daughters, the way he'd looked at her like she wasn't broken, just human. She replayed Sophie's hug over and over in her mind. She missed them all. But fear had a grip on her that love alone hadn't loosened yet. Her phone buzzed constantly with blocked calls, messages she refused to open. Her ex-husband's presence lingered like a shadow she couldn't outrun. Until one afternoon, her sister sat across from her and said, "Running isn't protecting anyone anymore." Clara broke then. She cried, not quietly, not gracefully, but fully, the way she hadn't allowed herself to in years. "I don't want to lose them," she whispered. "Then stop choosing fear," her sister replied gently. The breaking point came on a rainy Thursday. Daniel was picking the girls up from school when he noticed the same unfamiliar car parked across the street again. His pulse spiked. That night, after the girls were asleep, he made the call he'd been avoiding: legal advice, documentation, protection. He wasn't reckless. He was prepared. But anger simmered beneath the calm. He refused to let history repeat itself. Clara returned 3 days later. Daniel heard the knock and froze, heart slamming against his ribs. When he opened the door and saw her standing there, tired, soaked from the rain, eyes full of regret, everything inside him collided at once. "I'm sorry," she said. "For leaving. For being afraid." The girls appeared behind him, frozen for half a second. Then Lily ran forward. Emma followed. Sophie last, slow, careful, but determined. They wrapped their arms around Clara like she had never left. Clara dropped to her knees, sobbing openly now, holding them as if she'd been given something precious back. Daniel watched, emotions warring inside him: relief, anger, love, fear. After the girls went upstairs, he faced Clara alone. "You don't get to disappear without consequences," he said quietly. "I know," she replied. "I won't do it again." "Promise me," he said, voice firm, "that next time you're scared, you'll stay." She stepped closer, eyes shining. "I promise." They stood inches apart, tension thick. "I can't lose you," she whispered. Daniel's voice softened. "Then don't leave." He pulled her into his arms, not desperate, not hesitant. Certain. For the first time, she let herself rest there fully. Outside, the rain eased. Inside, something steadied. But they both knew. The final test hadn't come yet. The calm didn't last. Daniel had learned long ago that peace earned too easily rarely stayed. 2 nights after Clara returned, the call came again. This time, there was no politeness in the voice. No pretending. "You think you've won," the man said. "You think hiding behind children makes you untouchable." Daniel stood in the kitchen, phone pressed to his ear, his eyes fixed on the hallway where 3 bedroom doors stood closed. "Stay away from my family," Daniel said quietly. A laugh. Cold. Amused. "She was mine long before you." Daniel ended the call and immediately began moving, locking doors, checking windows, setting the alarm. He didn't tell Clara right away. He needed to think. To act. To protect. That night, he sat on the edge of Lily's bed long after she fell asleep, watching her chest rise and fall. He moved to Emma's room next, then Sophie's, brushing hair from her face the way he always did when the world felt too sharp. He would not lose them. Not to fear. Not to the past. Not to anyone. The confrontation came sooner than expected. It was a Saturday morning, sunlight pouring into the house, the girls laughing in the backyard while Daniel flipped pancakes. Clara stood beside him, barefoot, wearing one of his shirts, her hair loose around her shoulders. For a moment, it felt like a dream he didn't want to wake from. Then the doorbell rang. Daniel stiffened. Clara's face drained of color. "I'll handle it," Daniel said. When he opened the door, the man standing there looked nothing like a monster. Well-dressed. Calm. Smiling like he belonged. "That's the trick," Clara had once said. "He never looks dangerous." "I told you not to come here," Daniel said. "I'm here to end this," the man replied, glancing past him toward the house. "She made promises. She broke them." Daniel stepped outside, closing the door behind him. "She doesn't belong to you," Daniel said, voice steady. "She never did." The smile slipped. "She's afraid," the man sneered. "She always comes back." "Not this time." A silence stretched between them, heavy, charged. "I've documented everything," Daniel continued. "The calls. The threats. You step 1 inch closer to my family, and it won't end the way you think." Something in Daniel's eyes made the man hesitate. Fear recognizes certainty. The man scoffed, masking his retreat. "Enjoy playing hero." He walked away. Daniel didn't watch him leave. He went back inside and locked the door. Clara knew. She always did. "I heard everything," she said softly. Daniel turned to her. "It's over." She shook her head. "No. It ends when I stop being afraid." The girls came running in, sensing the tension. "What happened?" Emma asked. Daniel crouched. "Nothing you need to worry about." Sophie studied Clara carefully. "You're not running anymore, are you?" Clara knelt and met her eyes. "No." Sophie nodded, satisfied. That night, Clara told the girls a story. About a princess who wasn't sad because she was weak, but because she'd forgotten she was brave. About a castle she thought she had to leave to keep everyone safe. And about the moment she realized love wasn't something you run from. Daniel watched from the doorway, his chest tight. This was it. This was the family he'd built without realizing it. Later, when the house was quiet, Daniel and Clara stood on the porch together. "I'm done letting my past decide my future," Clara said. "Even if it scares me." Daniel turned to her. "I'm scared too." She smiled. "Good. That means it matters." He kissed her then, not restrained, not hesitant. A kiss full of promise, earned through pain and patience and choice. She leaned into him fully, trusting, present, real. When they finally pulled back, Clara rested her forehead against his. "I love them," she whispered. "I know," Daniel replied. They love you too. And you? Daniel didn't hesitate. I love you. The words felt solid. Unbreakable. Weeks later, they returned to the same amusement park. Same castle. Same princess balcony. The girls stood hand in hand, watching the princess wave. Lily tilted her head again. She's not sad anymore, she said. Emma smiled. Her eyes are happy. Sophie looked up at Daniel and Clara. Because she stayed. Daniel squeezed Clara's hand. Yes, he said. Because she stayed. As fireworks filled the sky, Daniel realized something important. Fairy tales aren't about magic. They're about choice. About staying when leaving feels easier. About loving when fear begs you not to. And sometimes, the happiest endings begin with a single question from a child brave enough to see the truth. If this story touched your heart, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who believes in second chances. Because love doesn't always arrive perfectly. Sometimes it arrives broken. And asks you to choose it anyway. Sparkles the end sparkles.